All right. Welcome to the first episode of Indie Inc., the podcast where we talk about the backstory of indie pro wrestler tattoos. Welcome, Adam. What's happening?
Thanks for having me, Andy. I'm happy to be here.
Let me just say trademark pending on that, by the way.
I was just waiting to get the okay.
We're ready.
Man, I saw some good ones at up north a couple weeks ago. There's always catching my eye when we go to the independent shows, keeping our eyes out for the new ink on indie wrestlers. Now, does it have to be only wrestlers? Because I got my Royal Rumble tattoo this last weekend from last year.
Well, that's kind of actually, I wanted to talk about that. Tell me the backstory on the Royal Rumble tattoos.
So my podcast partner, Matt from Dorkside of the Ring, we, I guess it's been 6 years now. This upcoming Royal Rumble will be our 7th, where we listened to another podcast called We Watch Wrestling, and they had a Facebook group or something like that. And someone had floated the idea of what if instead of doing money, you get a random number assigned to you. And then if that number wins the Royal Rumble, or no, whatever wrestler comes out at that number, you have to get a tattoo of that wrestler or a representation of that wrestler. It's kind of loosely based. Actually, I think the one they ran was your number had to win, and then you had to get the tattoo. And then me and Matt just did it to where whatever number you get, because it was kind of, we thought it's not like you won then, if your guy actually won, then you have to get it. It seemed more fair to be, it's just whatever number you get, but you can choose whether it's the woman's wrestler or the male wrestler. So you do have two choices. And I've not gotten some great ones. The first year was Randy Orton. And then
you've gotten one every year.
Yeah, I have 6 wrestler tattoos on me now.
And is the actual wrestlers' names, or is it just like a interpretation? Like there's meaning behind the tattoo, like it's for Randy Orton?
Yeah, so that was the first thing I said, because I went through all of his like merchandise and logos, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't want a snake I don't want a viper. Maybe I don't know. But yeah, we kind of made it to where as long as there's some representation of it, and a couple of mine I kind of have to explain. So like I had a friend of mine design it, who's an artist, and I ended up getting like an old school cassette tape, and then instead of TDK on the side of it, it says RKO, and then the label on it is written, it's Randy's theme song or whatever. So it is a Randy Orton tattoo, but I can add it and throw my flair on it too.
Sure, and not everyone's gonna know what that is either.
Well,
so yeah, a little story behind that, right?
Yes, that one I have to explain out. But then there's other ones where it's like, yep, that's Johnny Nitro. That's I can't spoil it, but Matt's is really good this year. And he's only got a couple weeks. So we have after you get your number and the Rumble happens, you have until that following Rumble to get it. Normally we get it off the bat, and this year just everybody's been busy and kind of forgot about it. And then it's like, well, I was waiting to see if maybe some cooler merchandise was going to come out for this cat, and it just never did. I ended up with Ricochet, who's not even in the WWE anymore, but it's still pretty fun. So mine was actually again, I didn't like his logos, so I went back to my friend who did the Orton one, and I got like the Bullet Bill from Super Mario Brothers.
Okay.
I got him ricocheting off a Mario block.
That's kind of cool though.
Yeah. So Matt, once Matt gets his, because he showed me what it's going to be, and I think he wins this year. But we have, 6 tattoos of random drawings.
And that's a serious commitment, because like not only you got to come up with something creative, then you got to get that scheduled, go in. That's like, how big a tattoo are you talking? Like, shoulder, full back, or just small ones?
Some are small, some are a little larger, just because of the design. And the best part's always talking with we at first started with the same tattoo guy, so he had known about the whole thing, but then he had moved, so we kind of have been going where I've been going to the same one the last 2 years now, so she knows. But it's fun having to explain, what's this again? And then you explain it. But she was excellent. She ended up being she was like, oh my God, I used to love wrestling. And she's like, so she'd be going and then she'd be like, you remember the Dudley Boys? And I'm like,
oh, nice.
Yeah, I remember the Dudley Boys. They're kind of still around, So it's been fun. We're getting excited for that coming up February 1st, I think it is, and that's always been my favorite pay-per-view.
The tattoo idea sounds like a fun thing, but I don't know if I could personally commit to that. But I do like the idea of it. That is pretty cool.
It's a lot. And then what's kind of cool is we did another one in our Dorkside of the Ring group. Just we said, does anybody want to do this with us? No pressure or anything like that. And if just don't bail out if you're going to say you're in, be in. But otherwise, don't worry about it type thing. And we've had a couple people that ended up getting it done and sending it to us, and it's like, wow, some listener of the show thought it was funny or fun and got in on the fun with us, and now they have permanent ink on their on their body somewhere.
Dude, I'm telling you, we're onto something with this tattoo podcast.
The indie ink we got to make happen, because there are just too many good ones out there, and usually everyone comes with a story, whether they're a fan of it. I was talking to one guy who got Woody Woodpecker, and it looked like it'd been done so long ago, you kind of couldn't tell what it was. So while he was outside of the ring next to us, we were yelling at him, what is that? And then he tells us, and then we had to get the story from him. So I think we should do, even if it's like a quarterly show, but there's so many good wrestlers out there with interesting tattoos. It'd be fun to get the story on them.
All right. Anybody listening out there, give us a shout out if you want us to hit that up.
That's right.
We'll start recording Indie Ink. I saw one of the funniest tattoos I've seen. I share the picture every once in a while, and it was just somebody that had a tattoo on their leg of a Dorito chip, but it was Danny DeVito's face in the Dorito chip, and it was called Danny Dorito.
That's great.
I thought that was awesome, and the first thing I thought is like, what's the story behind that? Did he, was his Rumble entrant number 15? Like, what happened?
I love a good pun tattoo,
man. So what else has been going on? You guys have been all over the place lately with Dorkside of the Ring, or just going to watch wrestling shows in general. I keep getting hit up about, hey, we got tickets from Matt and Adam to this show because they're going to a different one.
Yeah, man, Mondo Lucha was not in the cards for us this year. Both Mondo shows, the one in the fall and then this one just a couple weeks ago, ended up on the same date as another show. So I'm just like, I don't want them to go to waste. Somebody take them. And I know you guys like Mondo, so yeah.
Yeah, we definitely all got to go to that again. That's such a fun.
It is. They usually do a one-off like in the summer for, I think, Taco Fest in Milwaukee. That's pretty good. And then they have, even if I don't even think they announce a lineup really. They just kind of have their guys out there. But that's always a good time. And then it's like, 30 vendors of different tacos. So it's just win, if you like tacos.
Yeah. Yeah, and like it's such a cool, like, just the fans there, like the whole environment. They get the band playing. It's like this like cult following. Like I was just talking the other day about what Freelance Wrestling Show reminded me of Mondo. Just with the same vibe and the crowd.
Definitely. I can totally see that. But yeah, we've been getting out to some shows finally. It kind of comes and goes, or all of a sudden you're busy for a half a month or whatever, and then the next show's not for 6 weeks, or a lot of the shows run monthly like JWA used to, and so yeah, we're getting out there. It's been fun. We were just up in Oshkosh a couple of weeks ago. We saw JBL show up and give a clothesline from hell. That was pretty fun.
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
Yeah. So it's been a good time. We're waiting for JWA to kick back up too.
Aren't we all?
Right.
We're all waiting. Well, tell me, so like some of these shows you're going to, are you guys just going to watch the shows, or are you actually like still like getting a table, promoting the podcast, things like that?
Yeah, little of both. So it just depends on what the show is. A lot of the ones in Oshkosh will sponsor, or I guess we just go to some of those as well too. It all depends on timing. If we're able to have the time to be able to get there and set up, then we usually try to do a table and network and do interviews and whatnot, or just kind of hang out and chat and try to make some money off the table and promote the podcast. But other times we just go for the show too. We did that Blizzard Brawl a couple weeks ago too. I think that was in Waukesha, and that was on.
Oh yeah. How'd you like that?
It's fun.
That's such a cool venue.
Yes, that venue is fantastic. It was good. We got there a little late, but that's another one where there's a lot of vendors and stuff too, and it's nice to kind of just walk around while the show's going on, so you can look at everything. We've been there a couple years ago with Jake too, so it's always a good show and a good time. We saw Zilla Fatu against Joey Jet. That was pretty interesting. Sabu, Braun Strowman. I mean, that they usually get some pretty big names because I think David runs that one.
Yeah.
Yes,
Hero show. Yeah. The first time I was in that building was actually not even for wrestling, but I was actually there to watch somebody fighting a tough man contest.
I've been a tough man there before too.
Yeah. And just sitting there just for that, I was like, this would be great for wrestling. And then like shortly after, I was like, oh, of course Blizzard Ball is there. Why wouldn't it be?
It does. It works very, very well. I remember going to that Tough Man, and they were doing live commentary on the mic, but it was only like one guy, and so it was not good. Just because he would, since he's by himself, he kind of stall out and not know what to say. So anytime there was a flurry of punches, or he'd run out of something to say, he'd go, get him, get him, get him, get him, get him. So I'd like have that imprinted in my head from anytime I hear Tough Man, I just hear that guy, get him, get him, get him, get him. It's like, oh man. And we've been to a wrestling show too where they've done that outside, where it's ring announcing is fine, but the actual commentary, it's just tough to do at a live event. I'm all for it if it's on a show that's recorded or a live, pay-per-view or DVD or whatever. That works, but live is just really, really tough. I don't know why it takes to me, it doesn't add a whole lot. But yeah, that I think that's just really tough to do at a live setting.
Yeah, nobody wants to hear that live. That's it comes off as annoying at the time. It's just you want to sit and watch the fights and I agree. Like that's just not, especially one person talking the whole time.
Yeah, that was rough.
Oh. Yeah, where's Don the Geek when you need him? Man, these do a 2-person back and forth. Like that's crazy. Yeah, so a lot of you might not know, like Adam, him and I do commentary, not live, but taped, recorded commentary for JWA matches. And I don't know about you, but I'm just glad that you know what all the moves are. Like, you'd think I'd know all the names and stuff for the moves nowadays, but no, these guys call stuff. I don't even know what they're talking about at the time. But I'm glad that basically you know what all the moves are or what they're called.
Most.
And then I basically just react. I react to them.
And it's tough. And I don't know them all. And I think I mess them up sometimes too. But yeah, you gotta have one guy kind of doing that. But it's nice to have, we'll have Don the Geek, which is actually my father-in-law, step in and help too on commentating. And then he'll bust out terms or moves that I also don't know. So everybody's helping each other. We actually just listened to on our show on Dorkside of the Ring, we have a retro Raw that we review each week, and then another person recommends a match, and it was Rey Mysterio versus Psychosis at like a Starrcade from 1996 or something. Or maybe a Spring Stampede. Anyway, and it was Heenan on the call with like Mike Tenay. Now keep in mind, this is the first time they're seeing like Rey Mysterio Jr. So all these moves are coming out, and Bobby Heenan's like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, they're calling Hurricane as a Frankensteiner because that's the only thing they've, seen, that move before from Scott. So it was pretty fun to see that where they're just like, you're going to have to tell us what's what. I think Mike Tenay might have been helping just because they had no idea what, the hardcore luchador style was. So it was kind of funny that we were just talking about that.
That's awesome. Yeah, so like I've had Matt on the podcast, I guess last year now, but and I was telling him about what I really liked about your Dorkside podcast is that like you guys talk about, you're like watching old Raws in sequence and then discussing them every week. Yeah. Like you guys watch the same episode and then talk about it. And I would like listen in and I'm like, oh, I remember that episode. Like, I think you guys were talking about like 1, 2, 3 Kid or something, like when he first came onto the scene.
Yeah.
Against like Razor. And I'm like, oh, I totally remember that episode.
Yeah, it's been a blast. So Matt found to where it actually he found a year that it was the same date as the night that we record. So that's kind of how we started, and then we just started following it each week, going with week to week. So we are now into 2001, and there is a time where we kind of stopped watching wrestling in our teens, and then kind of got back into it later. So all this stuff is pretty new to us now, which has been fun. So it's not so much a review; it's
nice.
Like, oh, geez, and it's also wild to kind of see the Attitude Era. Then doing stuff that you're like, yeah, this wouldn't fly today at all. This is wow.
Oh, right.
But that adds a component. Or just the start of stuff. Like last week they were showing they're launching their original Xbox. So is The Rock and Bill Gates doing like a promo for it, and it's just like, wow, like you just get to see all this old news, current event, or former current event stuff mixed in with wrestling. There has been an issue with that though, because Monday Night Raw just went to Netflix.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, like, how does that affect? Like, have you guys been watching everything on Peacock?
Yes,
but it's still on Peacock.
Just Raw moved over to Peacock for now. And then
Raw's on Netflix, but where are the old Raw episodes?
So they did bring the Raw episodes. However, they haven't brought them all. So for some reason, we got the first 3 or something like that of 2001, and then it jumps to March. So that's gonna screw our whole. We made the joke we might have to find a Raw bootleg guy off the streets, to get our fix each week, because it's just gonna
like actual VHS.
Yeah, we're gonna have to fire up the VCR and get the 32-incher out. But yeah, so we might have to swap over to SmackDown just to keep the weekly theme going, because we're gonna lose our that date. And I think we have maybe one left. That's next week.
Well, I'm wondering because I've heard like everything on Netflix, like everything, the whole library is available to everyone outside of the U.S. on Netflix.
Oh, really?
So yes, I don't know if like maybe you'd have to VPN it, you know.
Right.
Like I'm not sure, but I don't know how you'd get around that. But yeah, otherwise you just have to wait for the episode to.
We're just gonna take a break on that segment, and we'll come back in March, I guess, when it picks back up. But I almost wonder if it's like did someone go through and watch all the episodes? Like, why is there 10 episodes in 2001, and why does it jump from January 30th to March? Did they see something on there that their censors or something went, nah, we can't replay that? Because Peacock was doing some of that where they would blur out certain stuff or bleep stuff or cut out a segment altogether that we would catch once in a while. And, like our listeners would say, hey, if you actually watch Raw, here's what happened. And they just cut out this backstage scene because it's too, risque nowadays. So we don't know why some are loaded and some aren't. Maybe I thought maybe they're just working up to it, but they haven't added anything, and it's been a month or almost a month. So I guess we'll just have to see. But we might have to go switch over to SmackDown to review just so we can watch that on Peacock still.
Yeah, originally, I thought everything was switching over to Netflix. Like that's the way they kind of made.
That's what I thought too.
And so I'm like, oh, sweet. I'm ditching Peacock, right? And then, I hit cancel on my Peacock plan. I already had Netflix, so I'm good to go. And then, like shortly after, I get this email that's like from Peacock that's like, well, if, you don't stay, you're going to miss Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. And, and I'm like, dude, what? I'm like, what? I'm like, I don't watch a ton of wrestling, but I like to watch Rumble and Mania, And I'm like, oh no, what's going on? And then I remembered that when I canceled on Peacock, they offer you the option. They say, hey, do you want to stay for $1.99 a month for 6 months? And I'm like, oh, can I get that link back? So I actually went through, I went through my browser history and found the offer that from that screen and got the $1.99.
So you end up coming out ahead.
So we're back. So maybe, maybe I got to get a Rumble tattoo to commemorate.
$1.99.
But yeah, no, that was, but I was like, oh my God, like how many people didn't realize that? Because they did not make that.
No, they didn't.
That they're every pay-per-view and all that everything else is still going to be on Peacock through till 2026, right? So like we got a whole nother year until everything moves to Netflix in the US. So yeah, that's crazy.
We had a friend in Canada, and so he had the WWE network up until last year or something like that. That was still a thing outside of the US in certain countries. So he was telling us about that. And it's like, wow, that's pretty sweet.
I missed that. Originally when that first came out, I thought WWE Network was so cool because you could just like type in someone's name or like type in reference a match and it would go right to that specific match. Like you could watch old matches that way.
The certain match was so much better.
It was so cool, and I don't know, just nobody's been able to replicate that.
I agree.
Or I don't even think they're trying. To be honest.
Yeah, that's true. And I was just kind of getting used to Peacock, and even that's still tough to find stuff. And then Netflix too is the same. It's like you got to relearn, or you got to learn whatever new platform it's going to, because they're parting it all out until it all gets to Netflix, I guess. It's like, I kind of miss cable and just ordering a pay-per-view,
Yeah, like, oh, remember that? We'd have, like, back in the day, have to go rent a box from the cable company, and then kind of also hook your VCR up to that to record it. and then it was like, I don't know how much, they were like 50, 60 bucks.
We'd have to save up. We could only get like the really good ones because we couldn't, we didn't have $50 each month for wrestling when we were, 12.
Yeah, I know. You'd have to like have like a party or get guys to chip in or something. I always used to go to like people's houses that we'd throw in for a pay-per-view, and that was fun back then.
Yeah, you appreciate it more too. It was like, doing your chores or something when you're a kid. Like, I'm saving up so we can rent this at the end of the month or whatever. And now it's right on your phone, or you can just hit it on your. If you have Netflix, you have whatever you want. So this kid's got it easy.
That's the thing. Like, I'm weirded out by it sometimes because like Peacock, for example, it's like so cheap. And you're like, all these pay-per-views around here? Like, it doesn't make any sense. I'm like, why can't I see this live again? Like, and then you still have some of the networks like UFC, for example, where you have to have ESPN Plus and then pay for the pay-per-view. Like, there's some like live broadcasts still on that pay-per-view model, but then you got like Netflix now offering, basically free fights and pay-per-views. And it's basically free. Like, I get you're paying the subscription, but people still find a way to complain about it.
And everything.
And it's like, what are you talking about?
You got it so easy.
Yeah.
So they always find a reason to bitch.
So you're a big, I don't know, but you're into AEW, right? Like, you've been to some.
Yeah,
events.
we've been to quite a few. Usually go to the All Outs each year. In Chicago, and then I was actually supposed to go to. We have those We Watch Wrestling guys. We were supposed to meet them out in San Francisco and go to Revolution a couple years back, and then the day of, I got COVID, and I call Matt and tell him, and he's like, "All right," and I'm like, "So if you can find somebody to take my ticket, I can see if I can transfer it, whatever you want to do." And we tried, and he was just like, I think I'm going.
He never did ask. I'm just throwing that out there. I never got the ask.
You know what? It might have been before we came back.
They probably was.
Would you be able to drop everything and go to San Francisco in 3 hours if you got a call on a Friday morning?
It'd be tight, but I'd want to.
Matt just went, I'm going, and so he just went by himself. It was funny. I was like, if you need any help from me back at the control center, like I'm like Googling like where he needs to go to get to the Cow Palace, you got to take a left, and like I'm like on the phone with him because I'm stuck in my basement for 5 days or whatever it was. But oh man, that was just rotten luck. No, yeah, we like AEW.
I love going to shows with you guys.
We always have fun.
Like, just like those Mondo shows, or like Matt and I went to a freelance show last year, like their 10th anniversary show, and it was just so much fun.
Yeah, we got to get out there again for sure.
Yeah, we got to do more of that stuff. That's awesome. Yeah, I was going to ask you, like, because just like the Netflix thing with WWE, like AEW's on HBO Max.
Yeah, I haven't.
Or Max, I don't know what they call it. Max.
It's those combined, right? And they just call it Max.
Yeah. I think it's just Max. I don't know. It's weird because like Hulu, Disney, and Max are all, I think, owned by the same company now. So like if you get Hulu, it's actually really cool. You can get Hulu, Disney, and Max all in one bundle, and it's like cheaper.
Yeah,
And I'm like, this is cool. And then it just so happens like, oh, now all the AEW stuff is on Max, but they still do refer to a lot of the shows as HBO. So
interesting.
I don't know. I still call it HBO, Matt. But it's kind of cool. Like they have live, I don't know what, collisions or whatever. Or they have like two of their shows are live on Max, and then you can watch the past stuff. I think they had some pay-per-views.
Yeah, I think they got all the pay-per-views, which is I've heard a lot of people are very happy with that. That's very cool. They did that, and it kind of, if WWE and AEW are going this route, I mean, it seems like that must kind of be where everything's going type thing. So it's exciting to see.
Yeah, I don't think they're doing live pay-per-views on there. I don't think that's part of it, or at least not now. But I've never really seen any
you're right.
of the AEW stuff, so it's all new for me. Just like the Raws or whatever. Like I haven't seen any of it, so if I turn something on, I'm seeing it for the first time. So it's pretty cool.
There's some great stuff on there. So there you go. You got a free catalog to go back and check out anything that you want.
Yeah, it's just really awesome because I remember I think it was 10 years ago or something. I was like, they got to get wrestling onto a Netflix. Like they got to stream this stuff. Like cable sucks.
Yeah.
And it's just cool to finally see it happen.
Pretty big deal too. And I really like the look and the feel of Raw now that it's on Netflix. I think they've done a good job with that. And yeah, it's kind of.
What do you think of the new canvas?
I don't mind it. It gives it a different feel. And some people complain about the sponsors and stuff, and it's fine to me. It kind of makes it reminds me of a UFC or a boxing format, almost. So not that changes it at all for me, but I thought it looked good. And the past couple shows, I wasn't excited about them being 3 hours, but Monday they said before they don't have any time restraints, but I never thought about, and that could mean not them just going over 3 hours. They could end early if they want. When the show's over, it's over. So last night it was only 2.5, or Monday night, or whatever it was. Yeah, last night. So that was kind of nice. I'm like, oh, that's perfect. They can do whatever they want, really, to have that freedoms.
Yeah, way more flexibility than being on television.
Yeah, so I like it so far. I think they've done a great job, and it seems to be getting a lot of
yeah, I'm wondering if those sponsors are. I don't think that's printed right onto the canvas, but digitally probably. I would assume because aren't they changing?
Yeah, but I've seen it where they get a new canvas over the top of it so fast. We were at a show one time and they did. The whole setup they changed within minutes. Inside of a commercial break, and they taped the ropes up. It was. They went to maybe it was the Cruiserweight Classic or something. I can't remember, but I was amazed at how quick they just flipped that thing and then flipped it back too, and then on with the show.
Yeah, that's what one time Jake and I went to, I want to say it was a SmackDown taping or something that was in Rockford. And it was really cool, but the whole time, because I hadn't, at the time, I had not really watched, much wrestling or SmackDown or anything. But the whole time, the only thing that stood out to me was how much ring crew and switching because they were switching from one, I don't know, say an NXT to a SmackDown, and they just swap everything out. They have so much crew. They're so, just swapping everything out in minutes, or if something broke on the ring, they're fixing it real quick. And they had semis and semis of outside of equipment,
it's a whole thing. They had I can't remember what pay-per-view it was, but just recently might have been one of the overseas ones, but they just had a camera on YouTube that was live of them just building the stage from early that morning until whenever it was done. I was flipping through it, I'm like, what's that live? I thought it was a presser or something, and I'm like, no, it's just them building, which is cool. I looked and there's 100,000 people watching this right now. I'm like, wow, that somebody thought of a good idea to be we should film this and just put it on YouTube for free, It is.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people understand how much goes into that. It's so crazy. Yeah, that's all I was watching while I was at the event. I wasn't even paying attention. I'm just watching production the entire time.
I love that.
And just fascinated.
Yeah, you're what's this guy doing? Well, we went to the only Royal Rumble we went to live, St. Louis, and the classic whoever wins points at the WrestleMania sign. The WrestleMania sign that was hanging above the crowd started on fire and started you could see little droplets of fire coming down they had to clear out a whole section of the floor and lower it down and like extinguish it and then like bring it back up. It was pretty wild. So another one of those production things where you're like, holy shit, you imagine being on that team and they're like, hey, that sign's on fire. Like, we should probably take care of that. All right, this is what we've been training for. Bring her down. We'll spray it out and raise it back up before the rumbles. It was like mid-rumble or something. It was insane.
Oh yeah, I mean, think about it, because they're dealing with like lights and fireworks and like indoor fireworks, like just crazy.
Yeah, you get a little nervous for a second because I mean it wasn't engulfed or anything. I guess it was an electrical thing that just kind of, but it was just enough to be like, yeah, that's definitely some fire. That's like a little flame. But you start looking around, like fire exits. You're like, there's a lot of people here. Do I get up and go now, or just kind of wait see how this plays out? But luckily, it was fine.
I think like one of the funniest things that I recall from back in the day was watching a live pay-per-view. I think it was like SummerSlam '89, and I remember it like they cut backstage to a promo. It's Mean Gene Okerlund, Ravishing Rick Rude, I think Bobby Heenan, and they're talking about the Ultimate Warrior, right? And like Mean Gene starts the promo, and you could hear people pounding on the wall behind him, and the big SummerSlam sign falls down and clips Mean Gene like behind the knees.
I think I remember that.
And so like in the thing he's like the Ultimate Warrior, and then he's like and they like immediately cut, and like I think Rick Rude starts laughing, and they immediately cut, and then like Jesse the Body starts talking or something, and then about 5 minutes later they cut back. They're like, all right, we're back to Gene, and he's like, the Ultimate Warrior, and it's like, is the new Intercontinental Champion. And you can see Rick Rude like trying not to laugh. It was so funny.
There's nothing better than that backstage.
Yeah, and I think you can find that on YouTube now, but I used to keep that VHS tape for the longest time just to show people. Like, it was so funny.
That's a great rabbit hole too, is just to go, even if it's not even wrestling, like if you ever hear like Casey Kasem freak out, like it's the best. Like I love all that stuff where it's behind the scenes type, and it's just fun to hear them kind of, break character, just go off randomly.
Yeah, they don't realize the mic's
Or even the ones where like I've been hearing a lot of ones now lately where it's just like old like Raws or SmackDowns or something like that, where it's just like Taz and JR or whoever, and they're just in between commercial breaks, but it's their conversation where like, doesn't this guy look like this guy behind me? Oh yeah, it totally does. Like random shit like that. You're always curious, like I just want to know what those guys are like when they just bullshit,
Yeah, that's what's great about the internet, man. Like we get to see all that stuff.
So much like that.
And I think not just people catching it on their phones or whatever, but they're sharing way more behind the scenes stuff now. And like it's a whole show and just that,
Yeah.
It's kind of cool. And their social media, they post all that stuff on their social medias and stuff, and it's just before, like when we were growing up watching wrestling, you never saw any of that. You had to call the 900 number,
You could hear about it for $3.99 per minute. I think Matt was guilty of it. I think he got in some trouble with his grandma when we were kids, because one of those weeks where it was like, oh, they're going to tell us who the surprise guy is for sure. And you call them and it's just them milking you and talking kind of slow. And it was like, oh no. And then like the phone, we never found out. The phone bill came. He got grounded.
But it's research for the podcast. You go.
Little did we know. It's all prep.
Yeah. Did you ever go to? I think one of my first wrestling shows. You ever go to one in Madison at the Alliant back in the day?
I did not. Matt definitely did.
because I think my very first wrestling show, dude, was it was like a WWE. It was at the Alliant or whatever it was before it was called Alliant, and it was like it was a taping, right, for like wrestling in the, I guess it was in the early 90s, but like every wrestler came out and worked like 4 times. So like we were there for like 4 or 5 hours. And I remember it was like the first event my mom ever took me to as a kid. And I remember her saying like, "Are they all like this?" And I'm like, "How do I know?" Like,
they wrestle 4 times each show. I don't know. It's my first show.
Dude. And it was cool, man, because like I got to see everybody from Andre the Giant to like the Steiner brothers when they first started. Like all the guys came out like 2, 3, 4 times. It was just crazy, and because they were taping for like weeks,
right? And all the superstars and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
My first show was at Whitewater
at the college WWE show. Okay, now we're getting into something.
There was
who was there?
Shawn Michaels, Owen Hart, Bret Hart,
yes,
Virgil Diesel. Trying to remember the rest. Possibly I get this one mixed up from when they're at Craig High School too, but I definitely remember those because it was like right after Owen had turned on Bret. So we got to be like in his face yelling "Shadow," and
yep. So we were at the same show. So fun fact about that night is a couple things actually. So this night we were standing outside after the show. It was kind of cold out. There was a little snow.
February,
right? And yes, everyone's yelling at Owen Hart, you know. And I'm standing at the bottom of this hill, and I kept like, for some reason, faking like, "Oh, I see a guy," and I'd start to run up the hill, and then everyone else would run up the hill, and then I'd stop. And I did it like 2 or 3 times, and so people were getting kind of pissed. And then like the 4th time, I go, "Oh my God, there's Bret Hart," and I go flying up the hill because he's right there, and nobody comes. And I have, I got his autograph that day, and I have a photo that was made into a poster size, and of me getting his autograph in the back, at the back end of his car. He's putting his stuff in his trunk.
No shit.
And yeah, and what I believe was the very first photo bomb, because there's this kid in the photo, like photo bombing the photo. And I have it poster size, and I had it in my house for a while.
That's awesome.
And, but I said, I'm getting the autograph. I'm so nervous at the time because he was like one of my favorite guys. And I had a card of his, and I'm going to have him sign it. I still have it. And I get it out and I hand it to him. And I say to him, of all the things to say, I say, "You are my biggest fan."
Oh,
and he stops and he looks at me and he goes,
"That's perfect."
And I'll never forget it. And it was so funny. And he signed it, and that was awesome. Also, after that event, we stopped at a gas station, and they wouldn't allow, because it was after like 10 o'clock or something, they wouldn't allow Shawn Michaels and Kevin Nash to buy shit in Whitewater at the gas station. And I remember just saying to the guy at the gas station, like, "Do you even know who they are?" Like, just give it to me. What are you talking about?
He's on Shawn.
Well, you and I were at the same event.
That's great. Funny. I've seen like there's some site that you can send them your card from your first match or the first show you went to, and they'll like do it up like it was on the back of like a, you know, the VCR cover or something like that, or like a marquee deal and stuff. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. That's a good idea. I might give that one to that Whitewater one. just because it was the first.
That was fun. I remember Whitewater, and then I remember the Craig High School show. That was crazy too, because like what Undertaker was.
The Undertaker was that,
I believe. Yeah, that was pretty cool. And then I think shortly after that they stopped doing those kind of like school gym shows.
Yeah, it's wild that because around that time they were. I mean, I guess it was before they started getting really, really hot and popular, you know. But just to say, like, the Undertaker was at Craig in the high school gym, and then 3 years later or whatever it is, it's like, you know, it just blows up, and you're like, yeah, they're not. That guy ain't going to be in a gym ever again.
Yeah, I don't know if that was like a fundraiser. Did they do?
Yeah, it was. I feel like it was like the Booster Club or something.
Yeah. It was
like, how do you
like
get
that.
the Undertaker though? Like, I get like some of the, you know, they call them C shows back in the day or B shows or whatever. But man, that they had like top guys there. It was wild.
He's just there getting some reps in, you know. I remember like Alundra Blaze was there.
Going
the
Bam Bam, King Kong,
probably Duke
definitely
at the time. Yeah, dude, I remember, man, going to some of those shows and just having a blast. And yeah, that was a lot of good memories.
Right. So anybody listening, you got to get out and go, even if it's whether it's a big show or it's just one that's at the high school. It's always a fun time, and a lot of those nowadays, there's some charity involved usually, you know, or it's helping a community. So it's always good to get out to. I just sent my cousin he hadn't been to one before, so we went to one in Milwaukee a few years back, and Penta was on it, and the attendant or the seating wasn't done the best. Like, we had paid for ringside and we got there and there wasn't seats for us, so they just took 3 seats and put them basically in the aisle where the wrestlers come out. And so Colt Cabana saw that, and then so when he came out backwards and fell on us, which was great. And then Penta like stopped, and I have this video of like doing like a almost a selfie with me and Matt, and then our other cousin that is like, that was like his first time. I'm like, I gotta text him that remember that guy? Now he's on Netflix right now, and he's like, you know, making good money and hit the big time type thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, you know, and I've seen like you know, a lot of people that have, you know, come to the show said they were like, oh, they were just fans of WWE or AEW, and then you know, they heard about like our show, for example, and then they came to our show and they're like, we're coming every time.
Yeah,
you know, like they loved it. Like, they'd never been to an indie show before, and then they're just like, this is great.
And it's like you're kind of getting in on the ground floor and stuff. Like, you wait a couple years, and some of these guys and gals are so good, they go on to greatness. So it's always awesome. It's always worth the money. It's not that it's crazy expensive or anything, but it's always worth your time. It's always.
Oh yeah, and then you go to like an indie show and you'll see somebody, and then you'll be like, oh, I see those they're on AEW Dark or TNA, or, you know, ROH or wherever, you know. And they'll be like, oh, I saw that guy at, you know, whatever show.
When we were at Blizzard Brawl, there was a guy sitting, I don't know, 3rd row or something like that, but he was rocking the JWA shirt, and I'm like, I didn't recognize him, and I'm at every show, and I sent it to Jake, and he's like, I've never seen that guy. He might have been in the crowd, but it's like, yeah, just people like to go to shows.
That's awesome. I was actually up in the Waukesha area one time. This was a few years back, and I was just at a restaurant, like a sports bar, and I go into the bathroom to use the restroom, and I kid you not, dude, there was like a JWA for Life sticker in the air. Just random, dude. Like, it was so funny. I had to take a photo, you know.
Slappers in the bathroom.
Yeah, I've seen it's so cool, like when you see your merch and stuff just pop up in random spots.
Yeah, totally. I've been just wearing my hat or a shirt or something like that and forget I have the hat on. Someone's like, "Oh, JWA," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, dude."
What's next for the Dorkside crew? What are you guys up to next? You got any events coming up that you're going to?
We got our Royal Rumble, which is we're not going live, but the implications after that will, be life changing. But with the tattoo, but I think our next big one.
Are you a little concerned about your entry pick?
It's got to be better than last year and the year before. The last two have not been good for me, so my fingers are crossed. But we got a big one coming up in May. Up in Oshkosh, the Water City Wrestling Con. That's always
Oh, nice. Oh yeah. You guys go to that con, yeah. How is that?
It's fantastic. There's Oshkosh has a really cool downtown area, and their convention center is right there. So then, it looks like, like small town America. Like it's just a cool downtown with a ton of shops and good restaurants and bars, and they have like an old theater that it has like the old marquee sign. And what they usually do is rent out that the night before, and they've done Conrad Thompson was there. He did a pod one year. Brian Myers did ECW interview with Raven. The Major Wrestling brothers, Cardona and those guys, they did a show there one year. So it's kind of cool to go to that Friday night. And then the con's like starts in the afternoon on Saturday. And then they have a wrestling show at the end of the con at it starts at 6 or something. So all the people have all day to go around and do the autograph thing and check out the vendors. And then they have a show, early evening, and then it all wraps up at 9 or something like that. But it's always a good time. That convention center is a nice one. Then there's, food and drink there, and they usually get really good guests, and there's usually some surprises. And it's a nice area, and it's a nice venue. And we've gone the last few years. We had to miss last year, but every year it's always been a good time. You get to meet the wrestlers too, and so it's kind of fun to meet them there and then see them. Like Ethan Page was next at the table next to us, so we get to BS with him, and now that guy's hanging with The Rock on NXT last week or whatever it was. So yeah,
nice. It's cool. It's cool to do stuff like that. Like I tell you, especially in a town like Oshkosh, because I'm sure you'll actually get to have conversations with the people, spend a little more time, get photos and stuff. Because I've been to Comic Cons, like down in Chicago, where it's just you're standing in lines, trying to get autographs. You got 2 seconds, use your cell phone, and it's just hurry up, pay me, get out of here, go. You don't get to interact a whole lot. But then I've been to a smaller Comic-Con, they sometimes have a smaller version of Comic-Con in Madison. And then it's not as many people. So I think they're more fun because you actually get to spend more time.
You get to kind of hang out and chat and meet new people. And I agree. I've been to I went to one in Madison. It was at I feel like it was at the Easttown Mall or something. But I don't think that was an actual con. I just think that was a big. But they had multiple vendors, and it was smaller. But that was, but you're right. Yeah, when it's not, you just go get in line for 45 minutes, at a time, and you talk to your one other buddy, but you're just there to pay and go. That's not the best. But and there is some of that at this con. I like all cons. That Danhausen guy, man, he had his line was out the door and down the street. It was that guy made so much money that weekend. So it happened.
That guy's awesome.
Yeah, man, he knows his stuff. He gosh, I can't imagine how much money he made. That guy's anything he puts out, it's printing money.
Yeah, we actually so when we went to that freelance show, he was there, and I had never seen him before, perform. I've seen the stuff online, but I've never seen him in person perform. And it was so funny because Matt's smarting me up about the tea. And then after the show, even before the show, like you're just kind of walking up through that venue to get in, and like guys are just kind of in the stairways with their merch tables and stuff, and like he's just standing there.
Hey, how's it going?
It was so cool because like in that at that venue, like you could talk to him a little bit.
Was that Logan Square?
It was really cool.
Yeah, totally. As soon as you said the stairwell, I'm like, oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it was so cool, and that was a lot. He was really awesome, but yeah, he's got so much. I see online just so much like awesome, crazy merch, and like, yeah, he's got to be killing it.
I met him first at the first time I saw him live was at Adam Mondo show. It was that they do that one-off at the Cooperage in January. I have to look, but I bet you that was 4 or 5 years, maybe even long. I like to see what year that was. But again, that was one of the ones too where he was just kind of hanging around. So I was like, hey, can I get a picture? He's like, absolutely. It's like, now that would have cost me $20. I'd had to wait in that line you're talking about.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, he's nice.
Yeah, I've seen him do like what's that, like cameos and stuff for people.
We got one from him.
Like, did you?
Yeah, it was for our other podcast. Hold on, let me tell it because we hadn't started the Dorkside one yet. And it was like $20 or something. It was something ridiculous. And he did the whole bit, the makeup and everything. I'll show it to you next time I see you.
I think that's great because they like personalize them and stuff. And
I got Ricky Morton to do one for Don the Geek's birthday, and he does a whole calls him Don the Geek, does his whole spiel about how went through a mud pile and didn't get dirty, jumped over the moon, like the whole bit. It's pretty great.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I'm a huge Don the Geek fan. I love that guy.
I still got to get his backyard wrestling federation that they had back in the early 80s there. I got to get that digitized. All right. He had it and it wasn't playing right or something, so we might have to get the original tape and get it digitized again. But yeah, it's probably a half hour of him in Minneapolis they're cutting promos and there's his crew and their guys, and it's pretty fun.
Wait, he's performing?
Yeah, he's doing some wrestling. That's where Don the Geek. That's where Don the Geek comes from. So it's him and his brothers and his buddies, his old neighborhood buddies from back in the day, and they had a little fed up there, and it's pretty good. They'd only do it like every Memorial Day. It'd be kind of just like a party thing, and they'd set up in the backyard. But he's got the tape, and it's always a good watch.
Dude, that might have to be a Dorkside exclusive, like on your Patreon or something,
Or we throw it on at intermission at JWA.
I need to see that. That's great.
As soon as I get that, we'll make that happen.
Awesome, man. Well, I'm so glad that you were able to come on. I finally got the other half of the Dorkside.
Yeah, I'm sorry it took so damn long
on the podcast. Oh no, you don't need to apologize. I've been last year I was like, oh, I'm going to podcast. And then like I'd set something up and then I never would.
Yeah. Well, I told Jet Thanksgiving Throwdown too. I'm like, let's just get the dang date. And then all of a sudden cut to, I get a date. I'm like, yes, thank God. I'm glad we made it happen.
Yeah, no, this year, dude, I'm telling you, this year I was like, there's 2 things I'm doing. And one, it's scheduling regular podcasts. So you're like the second one of this year so far. So I'm on a roll right now. Second one this week.
Let's go.
So like I'm on a roll, and I want to make more videos and stuff too. So thanks so much for coming on. It's going to be great. And we'll put the links to Dorkside and everything on the in the show notes.
Perfect.
I think that's what they call them. The show notes, but I'll put it on the website too, on the blog.
Put it on ours too, so we'll make sure everybody's coming back your way as well.
All right, man. Well, thanks for coming on, and we'll definitely have to have you pop back on here and there and give us the 411.
Sounds good, man.
crew and crazy.